All right, next up, one of our OG performers. She was at our very first Generation Women's show, and we hope this won't be her last. Representing Team 60s, Janice Maffei is a storyteller who has published plays, poems, and essays. Her first stand-up was on the Generation Women's stage a year ago at Funny Every 50, and people laughed. She's a co-founder of Vision First and the pioneer of Reclaim Plan A, helping people create juicier lives in the day-to-day. Please welcome to the virtual stage, Janice.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Georgia. Thanks for that introduction and these great stories. Fun to be here. So the phone rings, and it's a dingy yellow phone bolted to the wall with the same long, annoying cord all phones had in 1977. It's a college friend, another English major, who's done what many of us who wanted exciting careers were encouraged to do after graduating college. She's taken a course at a secretarial school. Why? Because back then, a path forward in a hot field, TV, meant you started as a secretary, and that with luck and perseverance, after years of collating copies and getting coffee for men, she could work her way into a real job, the kind the men have. Hey, she says, they're doing auditions for newsreaders at PBS, and I think you might be good in front of a camera. Look, I'm not in charge of anything, but I keep the list. Wanna? Did I A, immediately make an appointment and clear heaven and earth to get there, maybe even buy some new pantyhose? B, think, no way will this ever happen, but okay, I'll give it a try. Or C, hang up the phone and never follow up. You'd be right if you said C, because that's what I did. Was it because I was blissfully happy as an entry level internal auditor at an insurance company? Perhaps not. But I lacked the self image, the personal belief in myself that I was actually worthy of even trying. Consumed with doubt, I talked myself into defeat on the linoleum floor in a kitchen with a yellow phone. So here's lesson one from the disturbing yet true annals of my life. Great doubt as you would a doorman at a building where you're trying to get to the ninth floor. Because whether the door is held open or not, you just say, hey, and move on past. You must believe in yourself deeply and without reservation. Don't wait for validation, encouragement, or cheerleading. Show up every day for your life. Quick nod to the doorman of doubt, and then just walk on by. Now, in my 30s, my mother died suddenly on the eve of my father's final diagnosis with Alzheimer's. It ushered in a truly tough period, my father's tragic decline over 10 years. I had a 3-year-old son who was just entering a period of rapid growth. I was launching a consulting business, and trying to keep family life together wasn't easy. And one night, in an attempt to materialize a dinner somehow, I went to the freezer hoping for a miracle. And actually, there it was, a bag of frozen meatballs made by my mother. I was a decent cook, actually, but there was one thing I relied on her for, those tender, sparky meatballs. And anyone who's ever had them knows they are the best meatballs that can be made by human hands. It was a ritual for her. It involved moulig, a kind of dry Italian bread thing, fresh parsley, pecorino cheese, and I was absolutely delighted to yield meatball supremacy to her. You know, we had a fraught relationship, and it seemed we bridged that with her monthly delivery of frozen meatballs. So as I dropped them into the hot gravy, I realized I had never actually gotten the recipe. Never had we ever made them together. My mother died. I had 11 frozen meatballs, and then basically I was shit out of luck. So here's another lesson: get the meatball recipe, okay? Figure out who carries traditions in your family and step up to learning them now. Don't wait. Get the recipe. It turns out I've learned most things about kindness from my sister Linda. When I was in college, she sent me a card with $1 in it every week. I could buy a Coke or, more likely, a pack of cigarettes. And as it's important for you to know that this was every week for 4 years without fail. Now, cut to in my 40s, my sister is teaching third grade in North Carolina, and we're talking, and she's telling me about a Mother's Day unit she's doing with her class and how moved she is by the stories these kids are telling about their moms. Some number of them from economically disadvantaged homes, with these stories of such great heart and meaning. My sister was deeply moved by it, as was I. And when we hang up, I feel a need to do something kind for her. After all, I've been on the receiving end of her goodness for a couple of decades. But like, what could I do? What could I do? So I think of her students and their adoration of their mothers, and I say, and I order 2 dozen orchids to be delivered to her class on the Friday before Mother's Day. And it turns out the kids were blown away by this. They carried home these flowers like sacred objects to their mother, to their mothers. And my sister was pretty moved too. And there's something I learned in that, which is, figure out who your loved ones care about and do something nice for those people because it will magnify the goodness in the relationship you already have with that person. And here's a bit of a kicker on that. I have worked on the kindness thing these last many years. I have found that the expression of kindness, it has healing properties for me in particular. And my self-esteem, remember my defeat on the linoleum so many years ago. My self-esteem has been strengthened by these simple acts of kindness over the years. Now, that college friend who was working her way into an interesting field by way of secretarial school, she had an actual career in documentary filmmaking. And so, another lesson I wished I knew back then was that going after your plan A may mean sacrifice. It may mean doing something that's kind of short term crazy for a longer term payoff. As to the lost meatball recipe, my learning there is to take what has hurt you and see how it might settle or sift into wisdom. Don't lose it. Maybe you'll even want to create a jar like this one that says, Stuff I'm Learning, and drop your lessons into it. For me, it meant writing. In my 50s, I began a play, How to Bury a Saint, and it pivoted on a plot point of a meatball recipe that had missed an entire generation and was being handed down to the subsequent generation, very imperfectly, I might add. It took me a couple of years to finish, but then in my 60s, amazingly, it got an equity production and an actual New York Times review. So my point here is it's kind of never too late to reclaim plan A. Well, about 10 years ago, I was going through a rough patch. My sister Linda began to send me weekly cards again. And I can report to you that she has continued to do that every week for the last 10 years. Here's the one for this week. It's St. Patrick's Day. We wouldn't be surprised to know that. She faithfully sends me a card every week. It has cash money in it now, not $1, but usually $5 or $7. I buy a coffee or a container of soup with it. And she continues to teach me how to be a decent person. She's an essential part of a circle of women that have made all the difference in my life. Now, don't get me wrong, I love men, it turns out. I have a great son, a stepson, a couple of excellent brothers, and even a terrific ex husband. But when I take the measure of my days, I see that women have shaped and supported me. They have forged my essence. So I'd like to close with these words I've written to honor the women in my life. Build a cupboard. You'll need one when the heartache comes or the big chance knocks and you're knee deep in doubt. When life's lottery says you won or tough news by phone is close to home. Build a cupboard you swing open, stocked with women you cherish. Friend, sister, teacher, muse, women who, like an ancient remedy, handed down by generations, carry the tincture, tonic to soothe the soul, vinegar to wake you, lemon balm to calm, elderberry wine to praise any given day. Honor the women who hoist a velvet hammer to your darker dreams, who wrangle truth, who neuter fear, who listen so deep your ears might bleed. You are the women who have made me the woman I am. I borrow your strength. I mirror your goodness. I trace your genie and feel the flutter as my wings bud. Praise the women who carry you forward. Go build your cupboard, but first, stash yourself in the cupboards of others.